Good morning from Zurich. You're listening to Monocle on Sunday with me, Tyler Brûlé. Coming up on today's program in a very autumnal Zurich, Eemeli Isoaho is here. Also, Grgić is here, our security correspondent. Grana, good morning. Very nice to see you. Looking, I don't know, have you been like way south in Italy? You're looking very tan this morning.
Do I? No, I think I was walking here and it's 5 degrees, so I think
this could be it.
Improved my skin color for sure.
Okay, what are we looking at today?
Well, wash up from yet another White House meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky, after which all eyes will be on Budapest as a potential peace brokering place. And then, of course, European Commission has unveiled 4 flagship European defense projects. One of them includes the famous anti-drone wall.
Yes, Eemeli, anything from your world? Doesn't have to be your immediate world, Finnish world. Where?
Well, I've been in Geneva all this week at the Geneva Peace Week, but also at the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipation, or GESTA Summit, as it's often referred to. So what's in the works for research and diplomacy in the 5, 10, 25 years to come?
Okay, very good. Also, we're going to be getting the latest from the Balkans.
Student protesters march as Serbia's railway runs, a sticky situation for Serbia's oil company, and Pippi versus Pipi in the battle of the beverages. All that in a roundup from the Balkans with me, Guy Launey.
Plus, we'll talk Freeze London and look ahead to the Art Basel Paris Fair with Aurelia Rauch. It is the 19th of October, 2025, live from Zurich. This is Monocle on Sunday.
Live from Zurich, this is Monocle on Sunday with Tyler Brûlé.
And good morning from Zurich. As we were saying at the start, it is fall is definitely here. You can see there's a real pace change in the city. There's that coming back from summer moment that we have. And now it's just sort of getting into the groove. And of course, the lid is officially installed over the lake. It's my first sort of grey morning that I've had because I've been on the road. Definitely not. No lids over Tokyo, I have to say. So anyway, but you're adjusted to it, Eemeli. Good morning, by the way.
Good morning, and now's the time to go to Graubünden and chase the sun in the mountains. I was just there last week and hiking up in the mountains, and the leaves have turned red and yellow. So I can really recommend, if anyone's based in Switzerland, to head up, to
or
Graubünden.
Not based in Switzerland, right?
Fill
the planes up. Exactly. Same story down in Lake Como. Very good morning, by the way.
Actually, last weekend I was on Bodensee and it was quite nice and sunny. But yes, in Como, as I hear from my informants, it's much, much warmer actually. And yes, there is more sunshine these days.
Okay, let's do a sunny check. Let's head to the Mediterranean. Our editor-in-chief, Andrew Tuck. Andrew, you're in Palma this morning. Good morning. Buenas.
Buenas, and yes, it's a sunny 23 degrees here today, but slowly climbing to 26 by midweek, it says. So not a cloud in the sky.
Excellent. Andrew, why don't we start with you? If we were opening the pages of El País, La Vanguardia, anything making or catching your attention from your end of Spain this morning?
Well, I'm pleased to say it's not the stories that are dominating the UK press. Here locally in Mallorca, they just had a visit last week from the USS Gerald R. Ford, this huge ship from the US Navy with thousands of Marines coming into the city. Now, it's a backdrop which they're saying in the papers here that actually they're looking to upgrade the way that missiles are stored in Mallorca and make it a little bit more of a militarized zone in places, because it's become more of a good listening base, a place to have some security in place for NATO. So the papers are asking whether the island wants that, whether it's ready to accept it. But it does have military bases here, of course, on the island already. But it's looking to. It seems that the visit of the US airship, the carrier, was with a backdrop to potentially pushing forward those discussions a little bit.
Well, and if that was sort of just down from your apartment, it would block the sunshine, wouldn't it?
Luckily, I think they're thinking of putting the missiles on the east coast. But otherwise, this is a place which the stories tend to be a little bit slower. You can certainly open up the newspaper most morning and see someone's had a car crash. It's made front pages, and there was certainly a story about a gentleman who had drunk too much and had driven into the front of the bar the other day, and it made the news headlines. So the smaller stories making the stories here. But yeah, in El País today, they were looking at a big story about how both Spain and France are looking at restoring some abortion controls in their national laws, which is seen as part of a movement in these countries to stop the anti-feminist movement by shoring up, oddly, some of the things that make those rules harder to get around. So, yeah, interesting stories both here in locally and nationally.
Eemeli, what's catching your eye? Either newspapers this morning, your past week, what's caught your attention?
So my past week was spent in panel discussions and attending interesting keynotes in Geneva, both at the Geneva Peace Week, but also the Science and Diplomacy Summit that coincided with the Peace Week. So all of Geneva was purple. Both events had that as their color of choice. And part of the Science and Diplomacy Summit, their flagship product is a science breakthrough radar, where they anticipate what will be key areas of research in 5, 10, and 20 years. 25 years from now. And of course, you will see the likes of quantum, AI, cognitive enhancement, engineering, human biology, ecology, mathematics in there. But the number one area that got the highest ranking in this year's radar is, believe it or not, is fungi, which was a bit of a surprise to me. But apparently, we only know around 3%.
You just lost Gorana there. She's like fungi. She totally zoned out.
But there is a connection to bigger issues as well. So we only know apparently around 3% of fungal organisms on our planet, and we know them, as yeast for our bread, and a lot of our antibiotics have fungi. But apparently, in terms of the potential for the future, you can use them for wastewater treatment, biofuel, even anti-aging drugs. So apparently, in 25 years from now, we will know a lot more.
Okay, so it's more than a Sunday sourdough story.
Exactly, absolutely.
But you said also there was a de-extinction topic as well, and well, maybe for those who are not familiar with the de-extinction term, I guess is a little bit around. I think we've seen a bit about maybe the possible return of the dodo, for example, mammoths, on the steppes of Siberia, etc. Correct?
And the Tasmanian tiger, and the list goes on. So as the name suggests, de-extinction means bringing species that have long been gone back to the world, and it's actually a talk that's available on YouTube if anyone wants to go and listen to it.
Andrew, there's your Sunday afternoon fix for you.
There you go. So de-extinction, really a company called Colossal Biosciences, and there's some research institutes attached to it. They take genes, samples from extinct species, and then they do a little bit of gene editing and try to bring those species back to life. And apparently they managed to do that with the dire wolf. It's a little bit contentious whether it's really the dire wolf or a gene-edited version of a closely related wolf. But they have projects on the dodo together with the Mauritian government, on the mammoth, Tasmanian tiger. And in this talk, which is, I think, good, is they try to talk about how to navigate some of the ethical and social and ecological risks associated with this.
Well, and if you don't want to go onto YouTube, we've also covered and spoken to the founder on the Monocle Minute, also on radio as well. Gorana, do you want any animals to return? Andrew, I already know which animal you want to have come back, or bird potentially, but we'll come to you in a moment. Yes, no? And is there a global security threat as well? I mean,
has anyone watched Jurassic Park? That's the only thing that I would say to all of that. But no, I think we've already gone some kind of steps in that direction. I think that there was that wolf that was de-extinct recently-ish, right?
Exactly,
so, yeah.
The dire wolf. And then just to add, I mean, there is a geopolitical component to all of this, perhaps not the de-extinction part so much, but science and technology. And in fact, for instance, in this year's radar, they added a geopolitical lens as well. Because whereas traditionally, perhaps military might, economic output and territory were kind of what defined your influence globally, but today also control over data, control over
science,
emerging technologies is actually part and parcel of the influence you can wield in the global stage. So there is a geopolitical link to it as well.
Okay, Andrew, your vote. What bird or animal would you like to see return, or has all of this happened for a reason because dodos weren't so bright?
Well, the dodo always gets the headlines, but the one I always feel sorry for is the American passenger pigeon, which there were millions and millions of passenger pigeons, and they were shot, trapped, their habitats taken away, and they completely vanished. So a bird that was associated with America just literally disappeared. I think in like 1914, round then, the last one was seen. I think was in a zoo. And it's the smaller critters, I think, that some of those that have been challenged to the point of extinction that would be nice to see.
Andrew, I don't think there's not much Sunday sadness around the world about pigeons. But anyway,
I like a pigeon.
But what did the passenger pigeon? It was sort of the messenger version with people on top, or what was it doing?
It was the precursor.
I'm picturing like a Flintstones sort of size pigeon.
It's a nice little bird. I don't think we have to go all the way back into the kind of ancient history to bring back dinosaurs and things. I'm not that interested in seeing dinosaurs or woolly mammoths back on the planet, because although there's so much debate about bringing back the woolly mammoth, I think where the hell do you put them where they come back? There's not enough space for the animals we have now. We've taken away so much of the ice. So anyway, I'll go for a little fella. I'll have the passenger pigeon back, please.
Okay, Eemeli, do you want to vote on a return of a beast from the Nordics, or?
That's a good question. I can't think of anything
that's missing in Finland.
Yeah,
no.
Exactly. But maybe, just to make the point as well, a lot of these big species are really getting all the attention, these kind of household names. But you have thousands of species that, everything from insects to other types of species that might be even more important. But I agree with the point about where do you put a big animal like a mammoth in Switzerland. There's a reintroduction project for bisons to be out in the wild, and that's already facing a lot of uphill battle and kind of demonstrations, because again, farmers will be concerned over their field, etc.
Well, Andrew, one of the big stories this week in Japan, if anyone's familiar with watching the Japanese morning shows, this is where they still have pointers, they still have sort of enormous, whiteboards where they're sticking up lots of magnets, etc. The world of sort of, big LED screens has not reached Japanese television. So I always think they employ these massive art departments to prepare these 3-hour sort of rolling talk shows. And Andrew, there's about probably 20 minutes, the lead story, I think that was Friday morning, about all of the bear attacks in Japan. 7 people killed this year in Japan, some recently over the past weeks. And it's a bit of a preservation story as well, because you have the hunters, so traditionally Japanese gentlemen who would go out and of course hunt. They're no longer with us, and the bears are protected, and now they're in grocery stores attacking people. So what does that say about? Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just remembering when you kindly encouraged me once to go to Hokkaido, and we went to a local kind of outdoors shop there to kind of inspect the outdoors brands, and in amongst all the usual fleeces and scarves, they had actual bear heads that had been kind of scooped out, and you could put over your own head. So that when you went into the forest, you could approach a bear apparently and shoot it. Anyway, so they were I don't know how effective they were, but they did have a large collection of bells and whistles.
Well, this is the thing. There's a big discussion about the bear bell in Japan, because they said if you wear if you have the bear bell on your jacket, the bear hears you coming, and off it goes. Well, the bears are a bit smarter now since they introduced those into stores, and now the bear knows you're coming and he's just waiting around the corner for you. And that's the other thing. I think also the bears know that aging society, the Oji-sans are not so fast moving anymore, and this is what's happening anyway. No animal threats in Mallorca, Andrew.
I don't think I can think of any. They do have some wild goat. I think that's about as huge as it gets, and they do have some vultures here as well. But I don't think any of them are going to come and attack you unless you really kind of went for them. But
I think we're setting up Emma for a goat news headline at the bottom of the hour, potentially. Maybe we would just turn our attention to other stories. Maybe, Gorana, why don't we head to Washington? A bit of a change in tack. How are you going to move from bear attacks to Zelensky at the White House? But anyway, go for it.
The parallels of the megafauna and certain occupants of the White House. No, Look, I think that for me, at least, again, to come back from all the fungi discussions and different animals for which I was completely unprepared, I do have some thoughts on what we've just seen on Friday in the White House, yet another meeting in this whole trying to get to some sort of conflict termination or at least a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, and will he, won't he story with Donald Trump help Ukrainians, where he was dangling first the potential delivery of some Tomahawk missiles for Ukraine and then withdrew it in the last moment after he's spoken to we know whom, because it just turns out that Donald Trump, every time he speaks to Vladimir Putin, then does some sort of backflip on all that he was saying. And now what's been, again, kind of this ongoing story of giving legitimacy to Putin's demands by, again, agreeing for a meeting that will take place in Budapest. And maybe that relates also to something that Eemeli was talking about, the kind of future of diplomacy and peacemaking, because we can see, Switzerland is not anymore on these sorts of maps, right? We go between the kind of Gulf countries to now some of these more illiberal friends of Trump. But certainly, the conversation that might take place in a fortnight, I don't think that there's a lot of expectation that it will yield something, because structurally not a lot has changed. Of course, Donald Trump is now sort of on this wave of peacemaking momentum, as everyone has pointed out to, and he's very keen to get to some sort of deal. But really, when it comes to the situation on the ground, if anything, things are, of course, still in this sort of stalemate-ish type of kind of war of attrition and intensifying as we speak, not just in terms of what we've seen over the past couple of months with Russia's intensifying drone and missile strikes, but also strikes against energy infrastructure, especially goes on both sides, and really there is no sense that there is some sort of ripeness or a moment that will kind of act as an inflection point. So it's not necessarily kind of happy days. I think when you talk to a lot of analysts, even those who are saying, there are certain pressures that Putin is facing these days, I don't think that anyone sees that the conflict will end anytime soon, unfortunately.
Eemeli, as someone who, of course, is involved in the world of mediation, etc., do you think there's sort of some sort of magic drops that you could sort of somehow put into the porridge amongst everybody to sort of lift this? And you talk about this notion of sort of stalemate. What are, and I don't know if I was, one of your students in your class this autumn, when we think about, getting to resolution, what needs to be unlocked here and on all sides?
Yeah. Well, Gorana referred to ripeness, you referred to stalemate. That's the classical ripeness theory from William Zardman. And one could argue that if the parties still see a way out through the conflict, through the battlefield, then you need to tweak the context and work on that, perhaps through the delivery of weapons, increasing sanctions, to make it so that there is indeed a stalemate, that there is an interest in Moscow to also engage genuinely in discussions. I often don't find myself complimenting Putin, but I would say very shrewd diplomatic maneuvers to call President Trump as Zelensky's landing in Washington, and if the reports are true, what unfolded in this phone call, kind of him flattering first for him being a historical peacemaker in the Middle East, and then complimenting the First Lady Melania for her work on children issues, and then talking about trade relations between Russia and the US, and only then as a footnote talking about Ukraine. It really kind of at least seems to have kind of toned down the rhetoric on part of Trump. And when we saw this in August as well, there was a threat of increasing sanctions. There was a threat of immediate calls for immediate ceasefire, and those were diffused after the Alaska meeting. And the danger now is when there was it a threat of Tomahawk missiles and increasing sanctions and discussions with India, that also dissipates a little bit if the two leaders are going to meet in person.
You're listening to Monocle on Sunday with me, Tyler Brûlé. We're live in Zurich. Time right now here, it's just 17:22. If you're listening in Tokyo, 15:22 in Bangkok. Andrew, I just want to go back to you. We've talked about, of course, other side of the Atlantic, other side of the Channel, or up the way from you. if we look at the papers in the UK, it seems to be all the downfall. I mean, it's quite extraordinary watching what is happening with the Prince Andrew story.
Yes, look, he's been tarnished for years with various stories of seemingly being funded by sources unknown about his. He was known as Randy Andy in his youth because of his ability to date numerous women, and he's never been somebody who's been a great win for the family. But it just became untenable in the last week when it became clear that he had obfuscated or misdirected people when he had talked about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And now we know that actually a full year after all of Epstein's problems, he had written to Jeffrey Epstein and said that we're in this together. And there are stories in the press this morning as well saying that his wife, Sarah Ferguson, had long after the fall of Epstein been in touch with him and had been borrowing money from him, and after his release from jail had been to see him. So it seems that for both of them, it became just impossible for the king to tolerate their presence in anything associated with public life connected with the royal family. So there's also theories this morning how it unfolded, but also he's tainted now by this Chinese spy scandal where he may have been in touch with the Chinese spy master. And again, it just throws all of his morals, his decision making into sharp relief. And he is has been funded by the public purse in the past, and he lives in a huge house, and people are wondering where the money came to pay off Virginia Giuffre when she was a settlement was made with her. So the story was going to rumble. And interestingly, one of the things that seems to have upset the king the most is that he and the Queen are heading to the Vatican this week for a state visit on Wednesday. And the feeling was that he was going to have that overshadowed by his brother's behaviour, and for the king that he's keen to find a greater connection between the Anglican Church and the Catholic Church. So it just came to a breaking point. So I don't think any paper has managed to find anything empathetic to say about Prince Andrew this morning. And they are pointing out that although he said he won't use the titles, it's different to saying that he's renounced them. So he hasn't used HRH for some time, but he's going to stop using his other titles. But he remains a prince, and that's something he can continue to use as well.
And Andrew, I was just thinking we dodged a bullet. Remember, many years ago, I was invited to the palace to go and visit him, and it was basically because I think it was it Beatrice or Eugenie? He wanted them to have an internship at Monocle.
I think so. And
anyway, we had a bucket of water for that one, even back then.
We move on, but Tyler, it's just we're talking about the US, but I think maybe the papers in each nation in Europe would probably be the same. But you look at the UK press this morning, we have this anti-Semitism story about the Maccabi Tel Aviv football team coming to play in Birmingham, but with their supporters not being allowed. The government opposed to this move by the local police force. We have this China spies story that rattles on again and again and again, and this royal family problem, which is in the papers every day. I do think there's a moment for the UK where it's really grasping with what it stands for. And when I read the papers this morning, it's interesting when you look at the Telegraph. I scanned that whole paper. There's not one mention of what's going on in the US, for example, with the No Kings March. It doesn't even. I don't think they did a story about it. So wherever you sit in the political fold in the UK, you can open up your paper and you can find your idea of the world, restored again and again and again and underlined, and never be challenged on what you think. So it's a funny moment. There is something weird, I think, in the UK at the moment that, a great country, extraordinary things happening, and of course, but there is this sense of identity which is really cracked open in a way that you see in the US too.
Andrew, I want to just open that up and bring this, bring everyone around on this topic. But okay, we both grew up with Sunday papers, inside Sunday papers at the start of our careers. And there was that sense that a Sunday newspaper would take you everywhere around the world, as you said. I mean, if you looked at the Observer, when the Sunday Correspondent used to be around, the Telegraph, enormous, proper foreign sections. And as you said, and of course I was looking at the British press this morning, and it is incredibly domestic. And I'm wondering, is that too many editors going to too many conferences where it's sort of newsroom by algorithm? What's your take on that?
Too few foreign correspondents in the network.
You mean just pitching for stories and
pitching for stories and delivering other perspectives, and the overwhelming kind of focus on the US, which of course important. We hear all the stories today that the US is involved in. But actually, we're missed because we keep forgetting to look at what's happening in Asia. You'll rarely find a story from big populous countries like India on the front page unless it affects us in some way to do with trade, or Japan. And the coverage of China is always you kind of know the outcome of the story before you read it. We know they're China bad, China taking our jobs, China racing ahead in technology, we should be scared. But we still never have an understanding of Chinese people, certainly, through reading those stories, or what their concerns or what their ambitions are. So you come away from reading the papers, as I said, with your prejudices underlined more and more. And I think also in the UK press, a real shift to opinion dressed up as news. And you read the front pages of the papers, and it's opinion dressed up as somehow as news. And that's the scary thing, because the opinions that they run are limited and often woefully inaccurate.
Eemeli, if we were to, pick up the papers from your part of the world, if we were to look at Helsingin Sanomat in Finland, the same thing. Do we see this sort of creep of opinion to the front page? I mean, of course, Finland is not the UK, it's not the US, even though it's very cozy with the United States at the moment. But your view on that same sense of balance, or the Finns still not just looking at the broader neighborhood, but maybe much more internationalist?
I would like to think so, but I think reality, unfortunately, is not the case. It's a similar trend, and a lot of also opinion pieces. And even if you look at the world of peace and conflict, I think we have bandwidth for one conflict at a time, and it's almost a pendulum going, if you look at European media, between Palestine and Israel, and then Ukraine on the other hand. But there are a number, we were just talking about Asia, we rarely see news about Myanmar or Sudan, for that matter, in terms of massive humanitarian implications. So I think two things, kind of both bottom up and top down. We, as kind of, that's not an immediate fix, but we do need to invest in education. So people consuming media are demanding more diverse news in that sense, and perhaps less opinions and more facts. But then on the other hand, you do need to invest also in public broadcasting companies and media outlets. So I think you need both the top down and the bottom up.
And it sounds like, are you sort of subtly pushing that Monocle on Sunday as a radio program needs to become Monocle on Sunday, the newspaper?
I think we certainly have plenty to say. I don't know. It's funny, Tyler. That we've ended up in a space where Monocle can be a place that does host opposing views, which I love, and the traditions of the old newspaper, where you get to hear different voices but respectfully, and then you take time to digest what they said and come up with a reply. That's rare in the world, and I think that Monocle, and certainly other people as well, but certainly Monocle has managed to hold on to some of that tradition of what a good Sunday read used to be.
Well, Andrew, I'm going to let you get on with your Sunday. It's 10:31 here in Zurich. Same time also in Palma, but it's 9:31 back in London. Emma Nelson is there with the news headlines.
Thank you very much indeed, Tyler. Tens of thousands of people across the US have taken part in protests against the administration of President Donald Trump. Organisers of the No Kings protests say they want to challenge Mr. Trump over issues such as the crackdown on illegal migrants and the deployment of National Guard troops to some cities. Austria is to back the European Union's latest sanctions package against Russia in a reversal of its position earlier this week. Austria had been demanding that the EU unfreeze some Russian assets to compensate Austria's Raiffeisenbank International for penalties imposed by Moscow. An international airport in Japan is claiming to hold one of the most impressive travel records in the world. Not a single piece of luggage has been lost in 3 decades. Kansai International Airport serves as a gateway to major cities like Osaka, Kyoto and Kobe. An animal rights group on the Spanish island of Monocle has asked the Balearic government to immediately suspend the use of firearms against goats. The Animal Rights Party claims goats occasionally approach urban areas in the summer and that culling isn't the answer. The group suggested sterilisation or contraceptives as a better idea. And speaking of sterile, the NZZ am Sonntag is decrying the rise of so-called over-designed, expensive modern cafes and restaurants that are popping up across Zurich. At the Matcha Club near to the Paradeplatz, a green tea with milk and sugar costs 10 francs. With its minimalist interior, says the paper, specialised offerings, it's a trendy spot, the kind that's becoming increasingly common in Zurich. Empty, sterile, expensive, and almost magical in the ways it transforms a banal product into an almost transcendent experience. Those are the headlines. Back to you, Tyler, in Zurich.
Emma, I was going to bring that story to your attention because it is, I think it's doing very well in the NZZ this morning. I'm not sure what a matcha costs here, but we can research. I'm looking at my colleague Toby. How much is a matcha here? 11. Oh, 650.
Oh, you dodged
I couldn't see how. I thought he gave me sort of, 2 hands and 1 finger. Anyway, no. Okay,
you dodged a bullet there.
Yeah. Okay. Phew. Goodness. Anyway, but at least we're not sterile here.
You're really not sterile. I mean, I know only too well how cosy it is to get into the Monocle Cafe when it's cold. But I'm not part of the matcha clan, and I think it tastes like the sweepings of a floor. But I know that I'm wrong in so many ways.
Okay. Listen, someone is putting. Grana's holding up her cup.
So I've been a matcha drinker before it became popular, I have to say. So I've been on that sort of bus, train, whatever, for about 10 years. It's an acquired taste, I guess. Like it's a Vegemite.
Do you care for it? Are you down at the matcha joint at Paradeplatz?
I'm enough of a thing that I'm very much a caffeine person, meaning coffee. But I know, for instance, Julie, who's often here, she swears by the matcha lattes.
Yes.
Hey,
Juliet is like sort of she's the matcha mama. There, so.
But she has like a jumbo matcha.
Oh no,
which
is wrong.
Yes,
it's
we banned it.
Emma, sorry, go ahead.
May London ask a question? Does anyone around the table actually take pictures of their matcha latte? Because I think this is what the NZZ is driving at. That they're sort of normal grown-ups who are taking. There's a lovely story about a grandpa in a Superman t-shirt who takes a teenager and she just takes photographs of herself drinking a cup of green thing.
Oh, that's just weird.
And do they then actually drink it? Because I've seen this happen as well. The people order coffee and drinks and a nice piece of cake, take their pictures, and then leave without consuming any of the products. And that's just a bit odd.
Welcome to late stage capitalism. Right? This is sort of like before it all blows up.
Emma, I was just going to say on the goat front, though, is there what's happened with these policy measures on the island of Menorca? Are they distributing condoms for the goats?
What I thought. It's exactly what I thought. That the practical implication, the practical application of giving goats contraceptives is something that it's a story that I don't even want to think about too much. I suspect they might be adding something to their feed, but other than that, they're going to be chasing goats around the mountain, around the place.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like that. Now, I just want to this is a little story for you. So I'm flying back from Tokyo yesterday.
Okay.
Lovely flight. Plane is absolutely rammed. One of the gentlemen comes up to me on the flight and says, "Actually, I've got a colleague who wants to say hello to you." So anyway, this lovely woman who happens to be here today. So we actually have viewers or listeners, I should say, from Monocle on Sunday visiting. And this woman, Maya-san, is crew. There we go. His crew for Swiss has been flying with them for some time. Anyway, she said that actually during the pandemic, when they couldn't fly back and forth between Zurich and Tokyo, that we were a lifeline for her. So that we were sort of really introducing, sort of reminding her what was happening in Zurich when she was sitting in Tokyo. And also like this, Eemeli, this is for you. Because Maya-san used to also work for Finnair, that we also would talk a little bit about Finland from time to time as well. So anyway, it is one of those moments when you sort of realize that, okay, people are indeed listening, and also almost the public service role that we play, Emma. So this is sort of going way back when this program started, indeed at the start of the pandemic.
Maya-san, good morning, and arigato. Thank you so much for what lovely words.
Maya-san is waving to you right now.
The wonders of radio. The lovely thing is that I remember that we at home used to recreate the inside of a commercial airliner. It was an A380 that we used to sort of, you could try and make it in your lounge and we would have things serving. So I think that the mutual love of aircraft and radio came together at that moment.
Yeah. Anyway, it was fantastic. Anyway, my son is here with a colleague this morning, and and I have to say it was just also just one of those magical flights yesterday when you come back, and of course because of airspace being closed the way it is, and we should talk about this as well, about this whole issue about whether the U.S. is going to force China to stop flying over Russia, which is an interesting one. But there we were. We sort of you fly up over Hokkaido, then sort of just sort of sweeping past Sakhalin, and then you get up over Alaska, and then you are sort of heading back down, but it is still 13 hours and 40 minutes later that you land back in Zurich. It's a bit of a hike.
Tyler, you love a long haul flight, don't you? Because it sometimes sort of plays with my brain a little bit. I go a bit funny in the head, but you love them, don't you?
Listen, I love them because especially if I can get on the plane. I slept for 9 hours yesterday, start of the flight. No reason for me to fly in the part of the aircraft that I was in, even because I was like sitting upright for the first probably 5 hours, I was like completely zonked. But it was anyway, it was good.
And it was a couple of weeks ago that you met someone who said that you shouldn't be doing it. Has that I suspect that might not have changed your mind too much.
No, it didn't change. But I was a bit amateurish this trip because normally I sort of pace myself. But we got to Hong Kong and our friend Jojo was visiting, and before we knew it, we were in a karaoke joint, a new one in Hong Kong. It was and we said, 2 songs. Anyway, why was it 5 a.m.? And there was a meeting at 9. Anyway, that didn't really set me up so well for the rest of the trip.
That's a straight to plane story.
It was, but that's normally straight to plane is normally at the end of the trip, not for the flight from Hong Kong on to Tokyo. But anyway.
You've got to let it slip sometimes.
Indeed. Also, I should say we did a little intro and tease at the top of the program. Aurelia Rauch is here. She just joined us around the mic a little bit early as well. But good to see you. Good morning.
Good to see you guys. Good morning. Yeah, so many familiar.
Yeah. No. And we're going to actually head over to speak to our correspondent, Guy de Launey, who is our man who's usually in the Balkans. We're normally talking to him from Ljubljana, but he's in the other L city today. He's over in London for us. I don't even know what we're going to get. Are we going to be talking Balkans, Guy, or are we talking about sort of Balkans through the lens of London? Good morning.
Good morning, Thailand. Good morning, everybody. I think we're going to be talking about the Balkans through the lens of the Balkans, frankly, because I don't think being in London has really changed my view of it that much. Though I have to say, all the talk about matcha got me thinking about my favourite gelateria in Belgrade, which does the greatest gelato that I've ever tasted, which is matcha with candied raspberries. And that's bringing together Japan and Serbia, the two signatures of those countries.
Wait, hold on. This is news to me, and I've got to bring Gorana in on this as a neighbor, not around the table, but as a former neighbor of Serbia, being Croatian. Wait, but is this true that the raspberry is the national fruit or national symbol of Serbia?
They do grow raspberries, I guess. Like, I didn't know about this particular gelateria, nor that candied raspberries are such a thing. But I guess if Guy says they are, I guess they are.
Guy, tell us, fill us in, please.
I've made them a thing, but Serbia actually boasts, but they do boast about how many raspberries they export in Serbia. This particular
I thought that it would be infused with šljivovica or something like that, rather,
That would be clever, but possibly not tasty.
Okay.
Okay.
But
should we? Well, there's 2 interesting stories out of Serbia. I mean, one is maybe the principal one we love. We're talking about transport right now, and there's a story about, of course, high speed rail, and of course, Guy, you've often talked about the connectivity issues within the Balkan region. Are you going to be going high speed or not? Is the train going to get you there? And what's the story out of Belgrade on this?
So there's 2 things happening at the same time at the moment, if you like, with the railway in Serbia. One of which is that, in essence, Serbia's part of the Belgrade to Budapest high-speed railway is now open. So this is the link between Belgrade and Subotica, which is pretty much on the border with Hungary. And when you look at how that's cutting down the travel times, you would have had to allow about 5 to 6 hours before this link started, and 3 trains to get between Belgrade and Subotica. Now, admittedly, this is because there's been a lot of work going on for years, but even before then, it was terribly, terribly slow. Now it's 67 minutes from Belgrade to the border. Hungary is going to be opening its half of the Belgrade to Budapest line next year, supposedly.
And how long will that be then? Once we go from border to Budapest, how long is that going to be?
It's going to be about 3 hours. and that's going to be quite astonishing because it used to be 8.5 if you were lucky. And this is always the thing with trains in the region, and it's not just Serbia. It's European Union countries like Slovenia and Croatia as well. It's one thing what it says on the schedule, it's quite another what your actual experience on the train is, whether the train turns up, whether you get diverted onto a bus, whether you get stopped at the border and transferred onto another train which comes half an hour later. All of these are actual things that have happened to me in the last few months in Slovenia and Croatia. So it's pretty terrible throughout the region. So if they do get this together between Belgrade and Budapest properly in the first half of next year, it's revolutionary is perhaps too strong a word, but it will make a big difference in terms of how we get around this region.
And how much of these are also national or regional pride projects, would you say, as well, that this is really seen as, of course, that rail, whether it's Spain, whether it's Japan, France, if we look back over the decades, it was a real sort of, play on infrastructure, managing to, of course, mobilize a nation, to pull yourself together, and then have, of course, these gleaming trains crisscrossing nations. Is that sort of a hope and dream as well that Serbia pulls it off? And by the way, I'm curious about the rolling stock in China and Serbia's relationship with China. Where are the trains coming from?
They've got trains from a couple of different sources. They have got some from China. I think the majority of them are from Switzerland, the Stadler units. The one that I've been on between Belgrade and Novi Sad in the company of both President Aleksandar Vučić and Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban was a Stadler Flirt, I think it was.
Perfect name for that.
Yeah, there's a flirt and there's a kiss.
Yeah.
And it's whichever one is the faster of those two.
But yeah, train spotters, send us a note if you're listening.
There you go. I thought you'd like these sort of things. Yeah. I mean, especially with them being Swiss, Tyler. But it is a national pride project, and this brings us on to, if you like, the second part of the story, which is that it was a very quiet launch of this Belgrade to Subotica link, and that's because of the ongoing outrage about what happened on the 1st of November last year, when a canopy at Novi Sad station, Novi Sad being the second city of Serbia, collapsed. Now, this station had been recently renovated. The canopy collapsed. 16 people who were standing underneath were killed. So at the same time as you've got this new line running, you've got student protesters marching from Novi Pazar, which is in the south of Serbia, through to Novi Sad in time for the 1st of November, when there is, we can only imagine, going to be an extremely large protest about official corruption in Serbia. And this is all sort of getting together to be a very big showdown between the government, between Aleksandar Vučić and his Progressive Party, and the anti-corruption movement led by the students over the past year. Mr. Vučić is trying to make out that these are people, they call them blockaders, who are funded by foreign powers. They're trying to stage a colour revolution, and the protesters are saying that what they want is accountability, and they haven't had it yet. So it's a real shame that what has been the prestige project, if you like, of the Serbian government has turned into this symbol of conflict between the students and a lot of people who support them and the government.
Now, Guy, tell us why you're in London, because, I mean, one might think because this Balkans summit is going to be hosted, we're going to have Frau von der Leyen there as well. Are you front row seats for that?
I wish I was. I'm actually I'm here for my mum's birthday, so it's very personal stuff. Yeah, okay. But the summit isn't going to be for another few days, and I'm not going to be there because, to be honest with you, it's going to be more of the same kind of talk that we often hear. And we've had two things going on. Last week we had Ursula von der Leyen doing her annual tour of the Western Balkans, which she somehow managed to do in 2 days. 6 countries in 2 days she managed to cover. And then on Wednesday we're going to have Keir Starmer hosting the Berlin Process Summit, which again brings together the leaders of Western Europe with the leaders of the Western Balkans, plus officials from the European Union, like Ursula von der Leyen. I think, as I was saying when I dropped in on Midori House on Friday to people like Alexis Self, who's our foreign editor, the European Union is sort of aware that it needs to get its act together with the Western Balkans, that it's made a very, very poor job of making good on its promise that it made in 2003 with this Thessaloniki Declaration that it would get the countries of the Western Balkans into the European Union. Well, that was 22 years ago, and we've had Croatia join, and that's been that. And it's aware that people are losing faith.
Gorana's doing cartwheels in the studio, so...
Yeah, I mean, but the communications have been terrible. The way in which they've had the diplomatic relations as well between the European Union and the Western Balkans has been suboptimal. Now we're seeing Ursula von der Leyen making a big noise, and not just Ursula von der Leyen, Marta Kos, the expansion commissioner, making a big noise, particularly about Montenegro joining in 2028, Albania joining in 2029, and this does seem to be used as a case of pour encourager les autres, that if these two countries can get their acts together and join, then what's stopping Serbia?
Guy, just before we go, I think obviously the key story in the menu was Pippi versus Pipi as a beverage story, and maybe the outcome of too many beverages as well. But set it up for us. What is the conflict here?
It's a conflict over Pippi Longstocking, and what we have here is a Yugoslav era beverage called Pipi, that's with a single P and pronounced accordingly.
Gorana? Are we talking? Are we talking Orangina of the Balkans?
Correct.
What is it?
Fanta Orangina of my childhood. Yeah.
Okay, with
along with Kokta, which was the
not
Coca-Cola.
A trace of real citrus in sight, probably, or.
Well, I mean, is there indeed real Orangina
no,
or real
Fanta? I think they sort of talk that there's pulp. There's pulp in it.
Okay.
Anyway, Guy, sorry.
It's extraordinary. I mean, Kokta's extraordinary stuff in all sorts of different ways, and Pipi likewise. And it does have a picture on the label of a young female person with pigtails. And after 54 years, the family of the creator of Pippi Longstocking, Astrid Lindgren, have decided this is problematic. That you can't have a beverage called Pipi being produced in Croatia and distributed throughout the Western Balkans, while there is an actual Pippi Longstocking in Sweden. And they also point out that they sell Pippi beverages at their theme park in Sweden. So this simply isn't on. But the big thing that they're objecting to is that the depiction of the young female on the label of Pipi is too sexual. She's giving a bit of a come-hither stare, and this is simply not in keeping with the image of Pippi Longstocking, say the Lindgren family.
And this is just an illustration.
It is very much an illustration. I'm looking at it now. Okay. I mean, to be honest with you, it's a bit of a stretch. She's beckoning to have
a drink, isn't she? She just wants you to buy a case, not a single bottle, right?
I couldn't possibly say, Tyler.
All right. We'll leave it to our listeners and readers to figure that out. Guy, enjoy the rest of your time in London, and indeed, happy birthday to Mom. You're listening to Monocle on Sunday. We have just gone 10:50 here in Zurich. Aurelia Rauch is here. She's still here. We're in the midst of sort of really art high point in Europe right now, both London, Frieze. Also, we've got Paris as well with Art Basel. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you guys.
Okay,
Hi.
so listen, give us the rundown. We've got about 8 minutes. Let's talk London first.
8 minutes. Good. I can do. I can deliver that. It was great. I just came back. I came back on Thursday rather late. And, well, these art weeks, they always happen around the fair a lot too, right? It's the fair. And then there's tons of other things. The evening sales were at the big auction houses and the gallery shows, of course, right? And I'm looking towards Gorana because really I have to say we were in this fall with a lot of expectation on like how is the art market going to react to all the stuff that's happening globally, right? Looking back, the art market's always been pretty stable when it comes to crises, but it's always this constant question, what's going to happen? And we went into it really with a couple of reports of people, especially in London, galleries reporting pretty big losses in sales. Other places, especially in London, closing their locations. So, there's always that question. And I have to say, looking at the gallery shows and then also the reports from the fair itself and also the auctions paints a very different picture. Everything seems to be just splendid. The art world is a little bubble, and it just continues to be that. So I would say sales super, super strong.
And any market sort of dominating it, you're sort of hearing that it's collectors from Taiwan versus the Americans continuing to pile in.
That's a good question. I think the Americans are focusing more on Paris next week. I really had a very strong feeling that the American collectors are coming a bit more next week. Although, of course, if you're a red-blooded, passionate collector, you will probably try to do both of these fairs, right? If it's more sort of a thing that you're getting into or more like a hobby that you're treating it, I think Basel is probably what you're going to look at. So European market, really strong. Fewer Asian collectors, I would say. Fewer Russian collectors, of course, for obvious reasons. But maybe start with fair, go to galleries, if that's okay. I think that the fair, I had to smile at that matcha description, right? Because they're empty, sterile, and expensive. That is always the hope that it won't be that, right? And it was a very solid fair. I was missing a little bit the super big highlights, right? These works that you see and maybe are completely new to the market and surprise you like crazy how much they sell for. It was extremely stable. The galleries brought sort of their best and brightest, lovely selections, extremely solid. And I think in parallel with that were the reports of sales. I think the sales came in already opening day, pretty strong. We had way fewer pre-sales. So a lot of the things when we first got there, when the fair opened at about 11, they were still available. And some of them really only for the next hour. We had a couple of interests on pieces and they were sold rather quickly. So that's good, right? We really want to see that. Not so much maybe this hype of younger artists really pushing them, really escalating prices. I think people are looking more into a blue chip area at the moment.
Tell me, how has this adjacency evolved? Because, okay, you have Frieze wrapping up, then you go on to Art Basel, Paris. And of course, oftentimes we have a bit of a window between these, but of course you could just jump on Eurostar and there you are, of course, at the next offering. How do they position themselves? Do you have to be, even as a gallery, do you have to be at both? Because London's only going to, is perhaps capturing one crowd, as you said, maybe the Americans are more entranced and many others to go to Paris. What's the dynamic?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. So this dynamic has been like this for several years. It's pretty historic at this point because before Art Basel Paris was Art Basel, it was of course FIAC. And they have always been close together like this, Frieze and then FIAC, now Art Basel. And, well, I think the more interesting question is, are they sort of cannibalizing one another, right? And especially is Frieze becoming less interesting because Art Basel has the charm of the Grand Palais and the charm of, many other things happening around the fair. For many collectors, this is, of course, a fantastic moment because you do have the comparison, right? You can manage your travel around this and you can line it up nicely and you can jump on the Eurostar and you're over there and you get a full picture of the art market and what's happening. So I think it's developed to be quite a dynamic moment for art, for sure.
It makes me wonder, is there room, though, for someone to slot in with a 2-day, should the Belgians also jump in and say, look, let's do something in Antwerp in between or something else between the two of them? Because in the way that also Zurich's not done a bad job of having this adjacency to the original Art Basel as well.
Yeah, of course.
People have to sort of fill their time a little bit.
Listen, Tyler, I think if you would slot in another art fair, this will be unsurmountable for all the galleries. I admire those people, how they do that anyway. I cannot imagine. Friends of ours who are at galleries and selling there, I really admire their stamina. They're at London now the entire week and it goes till Sunday, and then basically Monday you have to go to Paris and do it all again. Yeah.
What do we look forward to then coming up in Paris? What are the hopes and dreams when you think about what is and will it sort of underline the spirit and feeling of what we saw in Frieze over the past few days?
Well, listen, personally, I was really hoping for good weather to begin with because last year it was gorgeous and sunny and people were wearing the sunglasses around the fair.
It looks like a shocker this week.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's not going to be the case. I'm expecting this to be, in terms of quality of artwork, really, really high, very much up there. And all the surrounding gallery shows and also museum shows in Paris are promising to be really quite spectacular. Lots to see in that entire time. And listen, previews, I haven't made my way through all of them yet because I was so busy with Frieze works. But I think that there's going to be maybe more highlights at Art Basel than they were now at Frieze. So that's my hope, my expectation, my dream. I'm looking forward to it.
And what are two galleries that you would direct our listeners to say?
Maybe in Paris and in London, both of them. I think that For sure, if you are in London and if you're looking, galleries would be closed today, but maybe, next week. Today you could still see the Fries fair, though. That's maybe important to point out. I absolutely adored in London the Ropak show. He's showing a young Danish artist, Eva Helena Pate. Really new, fresh out of art school, completely fresh to the market. Fantastic show, I thought. Victor Mann presentation at Hauser & Wirth, wonderful. And Swiss artist Nicholas Party is showing at Hauser & Wirth, which is really a fantastic installation. Could highly recommend seeing that. And Royal Academy, Carrie James Marshall, eye-opening show, museum grade, really, really, really worth seeing. So that's London. And next week, Gerhard Richter at David's Winner is going to be spectacular. I mean, absolutely a highlight. Rauschenberg at Rollpark also is promising to be really fantastic. And again, you see, we're really looking at blue chip and less so new and fresh.
Aurelia Rauch, we're going to have to leave it there. Have a lovely Sunday. We'll see you in Paris. So
yes, you will be there.
Party Tuesday night, also party Thursday night at Rue Bachamont
I'll mark my calendar.
at the Monocle Outpost. That's all the time we have for today. Huge thanks to Gorana. Have a lovely Sunday.
Thank you.
If you're sticking around. Also, Eemeli, you heading up to look for some sun in Graubünden, maybe?
Yes, and ETH is launching its School of Public Policy on Monday and Tuesday.
Okay, so that's maybe one for us to follow up on. Also, thanks to Andrew Tuck in Palma, Guy Launey in London. Also, our producers today, Desiree Bentley, Emma Nelson, Mariella Bevan, and also Laura Kramer, who has been looking after things. Also going to be a bit more of a constant around the area here over the coming weeks. I'm Tyler Brûlé. Monocle on Sunday is back next week. I will be joining you from Lisbon. Goodbye.